Sometimes the heart dreams of what it cannot touch. Tonight, Jack drifts into a world where memories breathe and moments with Lyndy feel more real than the waking world. In the quiet of his room, between sleep and consciousness, a dream begins, one that will pull him into the depths of longing. Love, and what it truly means to miss someone. Jack lay on his bed. The faint moonlight spilling through the curtains, painting soft silver lines across the room. His eyes were closed, but his mind was restless. Every thought of Lyndy flickered like shadows on the walls, her smile. The way she laughed when he teased her, the gentle curve of her hand in his. The room felt too small, too quiet, too ordinary, and suddenly the weight of reality pressed heavily on his chest. He turned over, trying to shake the memories, but they clung to him, warm and persistent. Then, slowly he felt it. The sensation of slipping, as if the world beneath him had melted away. The bed, the room, even the faint hum of the city outside faded into nothingness. Jack's mind became a soft blur, like waking through water. A faint glow appeared ahead, soft and inviting, like the last light of sunset, lingering in the sky. He felt drawn to it, as though some invisible thread connected his heart to the radiance. The air was different here, heavier, warmer, and full of an almost electric tension. Every breath he took carried whispers he could almost understand. Soft echoes that sounded like fragments of conversation, laughter, and moments lost in time. As he stepped into the light, the world around him changed. The familiar lines of his bedroom dissolved, replaced by a landscape that was both unreal and achingly familiar. Trees shimmered with golden leaves that floated upward as if gravity had forgotten them. The ground under his feet seemed soft, almost like clouds, and every step sent ripples of color spreading outward, painting the dream in motion. Jack felt weightless, as if his body were moving through a memory rather than a place. He looked around and realized this world was made of fragments of moments with Lyndy, pieces of time stitched together in the quiet corners of his heart. Suddenly he saw her. Lyndy stood across a meadow bathed in soft light, the wind teasing her hair, a gentle smile on her face. She wasn't moving, yet the world around her pulsed with life, a dream breathing with her presence. Jack's chest tightened, a mixture of joy and ache flooding through him. He wanted to call out, to run to her, but the dream seemed to hesitate, as if it too were fragile and waiting for him to earn its trust. His heart pounded in his ears, each beat echoing like a drum in the endless quiet of this ethereal place. As Jack moved forward, each step felt surreal. The air smelled faintly of rain and flowers, of the soft scents that always reminded him of Lyndy. The dream was vivid, almost too vivid, as though it had captured every detail he had ever loved about her. He remembered the warmth of her hand in his, the laughter they had shared under the soft glow of lamps, and the quiet moments when words were unnecessary. All of it was here, floating like fragments of a memory larger than life itself. He reached out, and the world shimmered at his touch. Fragments bending toward him like water flowing around stones. Time felt suspended. Minutes stretched into eternities, yet Jack didn't feel impatient. He was suspended in this liminal space, caught between the reality he knew and the dream that felt more alive than any moment he had ever lived. He wanted to hold on to it, to capture every detail before it slipped away, but the dream had its own rules. It was fragile, delicate, and alive, reacting to his emotions, bending with his longing. Every memory, every feeling, every piece of love he had for Lyndy seemed magnified in this world, as if the dream were amplifying his heart itself. Jack finally stopped in front of Lyndy, close enough to feel the soft radiance that surrounded her. She smiled again, and in that instant, every ache, every lonely night, every whispered thought of her came alive. He wanted to speak, to tell her everything he had held inside for so long, but no words came. Instead, he felt a deep, quiet understanding that this dream, fragile as it was, allowed him to be near her in a way the waking world never could. The air shimmered around them, the light bending softly as if acknowledging the depth of his emotions. Here, in this dream, there were no barriers, no walls, no distance. Only the shared echo of two hearts connected across memory and desire, and in that space, Jack realized the power of the dream. It was more than just a memory. It was a bridge, a quiet sanctuary where the longing, love, connection he felt for Lyndy could exist freely, untouched by time, untouched by the world. And with that realization, Jack took a deep, steady breath, letting himself sink further into the dream, ready to explore the memories, emotions, and moments that had always lived quietly in his heart, waiting, like Lyndy, for him to find them. The dream shifted subtly. Like a gentle breeze brushing across a still lake, Jack felt himself walking forward, and the soft ground beneath his feet seemed to pulse with the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Colors became warmer, more familiar, the air carrying the scent of sun-warmed grass and blooming flowers. Then, slowly, fragments of the past began to assemble themselves around him, a park he remembered from long ago. The soft laughter of a summer afternoon and the unmistakable presence of Lyndy. She was sitting on a wooden bench, sunlight spilling through the branches above, her hair catching the light in waves of gold. Jack's heart clenched at the sight, a mixture of happiness and longing swelling within him. She was reading a book, but the corner of her mouth lifted in a soft, secret smile, the kind that had always made him feel like he was part of her world, even without speaking. He remembered that smile, how it had the power to make everything else fade, leaving only her presence, vibrant and warm. In the center of his universe, the memory deepened, folding in more layers of sensation. He could feel the soft warmth of the sun on his skin, hear the distant hum of children playing, smell the faint perfume she wore. A delicate mix of flowers and something uniquely Lyndy. Every detail was amplified in the dream, as if it were aware of how much he longed to remember her exactly as she had been. Jack reached out, his hand moving through the air, as if he could touch the memory. But she remained just out of reach, like a star shining from a distance, close enough to see, yet untouchable. Then came the laughter, a gentle, ringing sound that seemed to fill the entire park. It was her laugh, the same one that had echoed in his ears countless times. Warm and infectious, capable of dissolving every shadow of worry and fear, Jack felt himself smiling despite the ache in his chest. He remembered the times they had laughed together. Small moments of shared joy that had seemed insignificant at the time but now shimmered like precious jewels in the quiet corridors of his memory. The dream carried him further, revealing snapshots of their connection, a shared ice cream on a hot day, fingers brushing unintentionally, conversations that stretched into the golden glow of dusk. Every scene felt weightless, yet significant, a mosaic of emotion that pulled at Jack's heart with a gentle, unrelenting force. He realized how much he had held on to these moments without fully understanding why, and now, in this dream, they came alive around him. Vivid and tender, Jack moved through the park, each step stirring echoes of the past. He saw her toss a leaf into the air, spinning it with her fingers before letting it drift to the ground. He saw the sparkle in her eyes as she told him a story, her voice soft but brimming with warmth. Every detail was amplified, every gesture imbued with meaning, as if the dream itself knew how deeply he had missed her. The world around him seemed to respond to his emotions, the colors deepening when he smiled, the light softening when he felt the ache of longing. He approached the bench cautiously, as though afraid that moving too quickly would shatter the memory. Yet the closer he got, the more alive she seemed, almost aware of his presence even in the dream. Jack wanted to speak, to tell her how much he had missed her, how every quiet night without her felt heavier than the last, but no words came. Instead, he felt the raw emotion coursing through him, unfiltered and true. The dream had no need for words. It spoke in the language of memory, touch, light, and emotion. Time seemed suspended. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, yet the park remained eternal, a perfect vessel for their shared moments. Jack sank to his knees, overwhelmed by the intensity of remembering, by the bittersweet joy of being close to Lyndy in a way he couldn't in the waking world. Every laugh, every smile, every small act of tenderness was magnified, as though the dream wanted him to feel the depth of his own heart, to confront the love he had carried silently all these years. And as the sun in the dream dipped lower, casting long, soft shadows across the park, Jack felt an ache bloom inside him, a mix of love, longing, and the gentle sorrow of knowing he could not stay here forever. Yet even in that sorrow, there was comfort. The memory was real, vivid, and alive, and for a moment, he could simply exist in the presence of Lyndy, surrounded by the echoes of all that they had shared. It was enough, fragile, fleeting, and yet perfect. Jack's chest tightened. He realized how much he had longed for this, not just for the memory of Lyndy, but for the feeling of being near her again. His mind raced with fragments of past conversations, shared smiles, and the unspoken connection that had always existed between them. He remembered how icily she had understood him, how her presence had been a balm to every worry and every lonely night. Now, in this dream, it felt as though every ounce of longing he had stored inside him was finally given shape and light. He moved slowly through the dream, each step deliberate, almost cautious. It was as if he feared breaking the fragile beauty of the moment. Every glance at Lyndy made his heart ache, a sweet aching pull that left him both joyful and sorrowful. He reached out instinctively, fingers stretching toward her, but the dream seemed to bend around him. She was there, so close, yet always just beyond his touch, an ethereal presence, luminous and untouchable. The tension between desire and impossibility filled the air, dense and electric, stirring his emotions like a storm held in slow motion. Jack's mind drifted into reflection, memories layering upon memories. He remembered the quiet evenings they had spent talking, the way her laughter had felt like music he could never forget. He thought of moments of vulnerability, the times he had opened his heart and she had met him without judgment, offering only understanding and warmth. The dream magnified every feeling, turning each memory into a vivid, almost living scene. It was overwhelming, and Jack felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. The dream had stripped away the boundaries of reality, leaving only the raw pulse of his emotions unfiltered, unguarded, and entirely his own. As he stood in the park, watching Lyndy move through the sunlight, Jack realized something he had never fully admitted to himself before. He missed her in ways words could never capture. The emptiness he had felt in waking life, the quiet ache of nights spent alone, all crystallized in this moment. The dream allowed him to confront feelings he had buried, to feel the full depth of longing and love without restraint. It was a revelation, beautiful and painful all at once, and it made the heartache he carried in reality feel both lighter and heavier at the same time. The wind in the dream stirred, brushing against his skin like a whisper of her presence. Jack closed his eyes briefly, letting the sensations wash over him. He could almost hear her voice, faint and melodic, as if it were a memory speaking directly to his soul. "I'm here," it seemed to say, "even when you can't see me." The dream held him in this delicate balance between reality and memory, between the ache of absence and the warmth of presence. Every breath felt charged with emotion, every heartbeat a reminder of the love that had never truly faded. For a moment, Jack allowed himself to sink fully into the feeling. He let the longing rise, uncontained, letting the dream carry him deeper into the space where past and present intertwined. He could feel the weight of his own emotions pressing against the dream's fragile edges, and yet it held, bending but never breaking, as though acknowledging the truth of his heart. He realized that this dream, fleeting as it might be, was giving him something rare, the chance to fully experience the connection he had always cherished, without the interruptions, distractions, and limitations of reality. And then, just as the moment seemed perfect, the dream began to shift. Shadows lengthened in the corners of the park, and the edges of reality trembled like a reflection on water, disturbed by a passing breeze. Jack sensed a subtle unease, a tension threading through the warmth of memory. The intensity of his emotions seemed to awaken the dream in ways he could not control. The comforting stillness of the park began to ripple with uncertainty, and Jack felt the first hint of something deeper, a whisper of fear, loss, or change that would challenge the safety of his dreamscape. He opened his eyes in the dream. Taking a hesitant step forward toward Lyndy, the golden light that had bathed the park now flickered gently, and the air itself seemed charged with anticipation. He wanted to speak, to tell her everything, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he let his heart speak in silence, hoping that the dream, fragile and surreal as it was, would carry his emotions to her. And in that suspended moment, between longing and memory, Jack realized that dreams could reveal truths the waking world could never hold, truths of love, absence, and the ache of what is deeply missed. The park around Jack began to shimmer and warp, the golden sunlight bending and stretching as if the world itself were breathing. The trees swayed though there was no wind, their leaves fluttering in impossible patterns. Shadows twisted along the soft grass, and the distant laughter of children warped into faint, haunting echoes. Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. The dream was no longer a peaceful memory. It was alive, reacting to his heart, growing more intense with every pulse of longing and desire he carried for Lyndy. Lyndy's figure flickered at the edge of his vision, sometimes close, sometimes distant, as if she were both there and just out of reach. Her smile remained soft and inviting, but the dream shifted subtly with each heartbeat, bending the familiar park into something strange and surreal. Paths twisted impossibly, floating fragments of memory hovering in midair, shimmering like glass. Jack reached out instinctively, desperate to grasp her, but his hand passed through the light, through the memory, through everything, and she remained just beyond his touch. The dream intensified further as images of their past together began to overlay the park, appearing and disappearing in quick flickering flashes. One moment he saw Lyndy laughing as she ran through a summer field. The next moment she was by the lake, tossing pebbles into the water, the sunlight glinting off the ripples. Each memory overlapped the other, layering past and present into a tapestry of emotion that dazzled and overwhelmed Jack. He felt the pull of all these moments at once: joy, love, longing, and the quiet ache of absence, colliding in his chest with an almost unbearable intensity. The air itself seemed charged, shimmering with faint ripples like heat waves on asphalt. Jack felt as though he were walking through water, each step slow and weighted. Yet every movement stretched the dream further into unreality. He could hear Lyndy's voice now, soft and echoing. It's almost like it were coming from far away and yet inside his mind at the same time. Words were indistinct, fragments of conversations, laughter, whispers he couldn't quite make sense of. The dream was alive, shifting with his emotions, magnifying every desire, every fear, every hidden longing he had held in his heart. Jack's chest tightened with an ache he could not name. He wanted to run to her, to grab her hand and never let go. But the dream seemed to push back, folding in on itself like a delicate paper sculpture. The ground rippled beneath his feet, the trees bent in impossible arcs, colors bled together, the golden sunlight becoming streaks of pink, purple, and deep blue. The world itself felt like it was responding to the intensity of his heart, reflecting both the joy of memory and the ache of unattainable desire as he moved forward. Jack began to notice subtle distortions, glimpses of faces that weren't Lyndy, shadows that flickered unnervingly at the edges of the dream, fragments of places he had never seen. It was beautiful, breathtaking, but also unsettling. The dream's perfection of memory was now colliding with the unpredictability of emotion. Every step closer to Lyndy seemed to stretch the fabric of this world, making it fragile and surreal. Yet he could not stop. He was pulled forward by something stronger than reason, by the gravity of a heart that would not let go. He finally reached the spot where Lyndy had been standing moments before, and the dream seemed to shiver. Light bent, shadows danced, and the world around him quivered, as if it were aware of his desperation. Jack could feel the raw energy of longing vibrating through the dream, tugging at every corner of memory, every flicker of light, every whisper of sound. And then he saw her closer now, almost real, the edges of her figure glowing softly in the distorted light. She looked at him, and for the first time, the dream seemed to pause, holding its breath with him, waiting for what would happen next. Jack's hand reached out instinctively, and the air itself seemed to respond, folding and rippling around him. The world held its breath, fragile and luminous, caught between memory and reality. between love and longing. And in that suspended moment, Jack realized the true power of the dream. It could amplify every feeling, magnify every emotion, and let him confront the intensity of his own heart in ways the waking world could never allow. The dream pulsed with tension, beauty, and fragility. Every element, the light, the shadows, the memories seemed alive, as if it existed solely to reflect Jack's own yearning. The closer he came to Lyndy, the more the dream itself became surreal, bending under the weight of love, longing, and desire. And in that intensifying world, Jack understood that dreams could be both a refuge and a challenge, a place where the heart could feel everything: joy, love, longing, and the subtle ache of what can never be fully held. Jack's steps slowed as he drew closer to Lyndy. The world around him shimmered with the soft glow of fading sunlight, bending and swirling like liquid gold. He could see every detail of her face, the gentle curve of her smile, subtle warmth in her eyes, and it made his heart ache with a longing so deep it was almost physical. For a moment, it felt like he could finally reach her, finally touch the presence he had carried in his heart for so long. He extended his hand, trembling slightly, as if afraid that the act of reaching would break the fragile beauty of the dream. His fingers moved through the air, brushing against the luminous shimmer that seemed to surround her. For a heartbeat, it felt real, electric, warm, tangible, and Jack felt a rush of hope, a quiet certainty that this dream could hold him and Lyndy together, even if just for a moment. But dreams are never bound by reality. As his hand drew closer, Lyndy's form began to flicker, the edges of her figure dissolving into light. She was still there, still smiling, but it was as if the dream itself were reluctant to let him fully grasp her. The world rippled with each step he took, and fragments of the park, the bench, the trees, the sunlight began to warp and fade. Jack's heart tightened painfully as he realized the truth. The closer he tried to come to her, the more the dream resisted, keeping her just out of reach. Tears formed in his eyes, though he did not move his hand back. He wanted to hold on to her, to cling to the warmth and presence that had filled his dream, but the dream refused. Light bent and shimmered around her, floating between them like a fragile veil. Every emotion he felt, love, longing, regret, and hope, seemed to pulse through the dream, shaping it, bending it, making it more vivid and more elusive at the same time. Jack's mind raced with memories, flashes of their past together overlaying the present. He remembered small, intimate moments, the brush of her hand on his, the sound of her laughter filling quiet rooms, the gentle look she gave him when words were unnecessary. Each memory was amplified in the dream, pulling him forward even as the light around her began to dissipate. It was beautiful and painful all at once, a delicate balance of hope and heartbreak. He whispered her name, his voice trembling in the silent, surreal world. Lyndy. The sound seemed to echo through the dream, stretching and folding around him. For a brief instant, the dream seemed to respond. The light around her glimmered, and the wind carried faint echoes of her laughter. But as quickly as it appeared, the magic faltered. She began to fade further, becoming less tangible, like a reflection on water disturbed by the wind. Jack's fingers brushed against nothing, the warmth and presence slipping through his grasp like sand. The ache in his chest grew unbearable, a mix of love and despair. He wanted to cry out, to reach further. But the dream's beauty and fragility reminded him that some things are meant to be felt, not held. He sank to his knees in the soft, shifting light, overwhelmed by the intensity of his own longing. The park around him shimmered, colors blending and separating, shapes folding into one another, all reflecting the turbulence of his heart. And yet, even as she faded, Jack could still see her essence, the soft glow that marked her presence in the dream. It was a reminder, bittersweet and tender, that love, even when unreachable, leaves traces that cannot be erased. The dream, fragile and fleeting, held him suspended between joy and sorrow, memory and desire, hope and loss. In that moment, Jack understood that the dream was not meant to give him Lyndy fully, but to show him the depth of what he felt, to let him experience his longing in its purest, most vivid form as he sat there, hand outstretched toward the fading light. Jack realized that some connections are not bound by touch or proximity. Some hearts, no matter how far apart, leave marks that linger forever in memory and dreams, and in the quiet ache of longing that defines the human heart. The dream pulsed gently around him, fragile but alive, and Jack, overwhelmed with emotion, allowed himself to feel it fully, knowing that this fleeting moment would echo in his heart long after he woke. Jack's knees sank deeper into the soft, shifting light of the dream, his hands still outstretched toward the fading shimmer of Lyndy's form. The dream around him pulsed with energy, responding to every throb of his heart. Colors swirled violently now, golden sunlight melting into deep purples and soft blues, shadows twisting into long flowing patterns that seemed almost alive. The wind carried faint whispers of memories, fragments of laughter and words long spoken, curling around him like invisible threads of emotion. The intensity of his longing reached a peak he had never felt before. Tears streamed down his face as the dream mirrored his ache, every heartbeat, every pulse of desire magnified 1,000 times over. He felt the depth of every unspoken word, every moment he had missed with Lyndy, every night he had lain awake, imagining her smile. The dream was no longer a safe memory. It had become a living, breathing manifestation of his own heart. Fragile, yet overwhelming. Beautiful, yet impossible to hold. He rose slowly, trembling, as if the weight of all his emotions pressed him into motion. The dream seemed to sway and shift with him, the park folding and stretching in impossible arcs, memories overlapping one another in cascading waves of light and color. Jack's gaze never left Lyndy, who now hovered slightly above the ground, ethereal and glowing, flickering like a candle in the wind. The closer he stepped, the more her form seemed to shimmer. Brightening and dimming in response to his desperate hope, Jack whispered her name again, voice raw with emotion. "Lyndy, I need you. I've missed you so much." The words carried through the dream like ripples across water, echoing endlessly, folding into the glowing light that surrounded her. She didn't respond, yet Jack felt her presence in every vibration. In every shimmer of light, in every pulse of the surreal world around him, the dream seemed to acknowledge his love, intensifying the colors, the energy, the very air itself. Reflecting the storm of emotion that raged inside him, time felt suspended. Every heartbeat stretched into eternity, every breath a wave crashing against the fragile edges of the dream. Jack's chest ached with longing, yet in that ache there was beauty, the kind of beauty that comes from knowing you have loved fully, deeply, and without reservation. The dream magnified his desire, his sorrow, and his hope, turning them into a living landscape of memory and emotion. He could feel the weight of every smile, every laugh, every quiet moment shared with Lyndy, pulsing around him like living light. As Jack sank to the ground again, the dream responded in kind. Light shimmered like liquid gold beneath him. Shadows curled protectively around the glowing fragments of memory, and whispers of laughter danced through the air like music only he could hear. He reached out one final time, desperation and love intertwining, but his fingers passed through the glowing shimmer once more. She remained unreachable, a brilliant presence suspended just beyond touch, reminding him of the delicate balance between longing and reality, desire and memory. Jack's tears fell freely now, the rawness of his emotions pouring into the dreamscape. He felt both broken and alive, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he felt and what he had lost. The dream intensified with each sob, the world around him folding and bending to the rhythm of his heart. Every tree, every shadow, every flicker of light became a reflection of his longing, a testament to the depth of his love for Lyndy. The beauty of the dream was inseparable from its pain. Joy and sorrow intertwined so tightly that he could not distinguish one from the other, and in that suspended, breathtaking moment, Jack realized something profound. The dream was not about reaching her. It was about feeling her, remembering her, loving her fully, deeply, and without restraint. The dream allowed him to exist in the fullness of his emotions, to confront the ache and the beauty of longing, without fear, without limitation. He was suspended between presence and absence, memory and desire, heartbreak and hope, and in that liminal space. He felt alive in a way the waking world could never provide. Jack closed his eyes, letting the tears flow, letting the dream carry him, and letting himself be consumed entirely by the intensity of the moment. The dream pulsed with life around him, fragile yet eternal, a reflection of a heart that loved without compromise. And as the golden light shimmered and the shadows danced, Jack understood the truth of his longing. Some love is eternal, some hearts leave marks that cannot fade, and some dreams, fleeting as they may be, hold the power to make us feel everything we have ever loved in its purest form.